Hello, I'm Helen Swire. Welcome to Rewards Roundtable on Auto-Enrolment and Pensions.
There's so much to talk about in relation to the pensions changes that occurred last week. In principle, I think what we now have is more choice at retirement, people not having to buy an annuity, which for some people is going to be a very, very positive change. It does, however, go against years and years of pensions thinking, the idea that you kind of encourage people to build up pensions wealth until they are old enough to need it. So the obvious concern is, what about those people who do actually access the pensions fund for non-pensions needs? And will they, years later, live to regret that? So fundamentally, very, very good news, but a few caveats in terms of some of the risks involved.
Vanessa?
I think I would endorse that. I think the sort of the greater choice and greater flexibility has got to be a good thing. But I do share the concerns that people will become more reliant on state benefits, which I think this government certainly is trying to prevent. I mean, with the introduction of automatic enrolment, for one thing, so it does seem to cut across the grain of pensions policy sort of to date.
Again, it was, for me, when I heard the news, I thought it was a great thing in general, because certainly the annuities market has had such a bad press in recent years, and knowing some people of that older generation who'd had to go through that process and felt actually very, very disappointed with the pension they came out with through that. So I think to be able to have the choice is a great thing. It's always going to be yet to be seen exactly what the impacts are. So with MBF we have a very young workforce, so I think for most of our employees to take their perspective, this has probably completely gone over their head and not something they've actually even comprehended or thought about. But as somebody personally who's maybe more within 10 to 15 years of retirement, I actually welcome the move completely.
I think I'll stay on a consistent theme there, because we certainly think it's a good change and a good change for the retirement system. We used to say that auto-enrolment, was the biggest change in pensions for a generation, but I actually think this is bigger. As you say, it fundamentally changes the whole DC retirement landscape. I think there are some questions that need to be worked through, and it's going to be a very complicated consultation to work through. But to me, it sort of puts some of it's the missing piece of the jigsaw currently. Like, we know that the annuities market has a bad press, we know that people don't like buying annuities. But with the single tier pension, which provides a foundation on which people can save, so that might help avoid the means-tested benefits problem. We're nudging people into pensions for auto-enrolment. For the first time, an employer has to actually contribute, and we're actually bringing some of the personal responsibility back into retirement planning, and that to me has got to be a good thing. We can actually talk about pensions with a positive buzz now, and to me, if this budget hasn't done anything else but that, then it's got to be good news.
No, I agree. I think that what it will bring is a shake-up in the market for provision for general pension solutions. So at the moment, like we all agree, it's annuity, end of discussion almost. But I think this will drive pension providers to bring out new offers to tempt people to invest their pot in a different way. I think that can only be a good thing. I also think it's a bit of a decision aimed at the popular vote, because a lot of the feedback I've had from employees who are going through the auto-enrolment process is a reluctance to join in because of this bad press that annuities have received. And I think this will allay a lot of those fears and hopefully drive more people into a pension scheme and increasing their contributions when they see that at the end of it they can effectively get their hands back on their own money. I think it's a good thing.
We can't agree with what everyone's said, but I think the discussion's all been about defined contribution schemes, AE. I think the more interesting thing to look at is going to be what happens in the DB, the final salary space. Are people actually going to be able to take a transfer of their benefits under the final salary scheme into DC and access it? And they're already talking about shutting off the public sector from being able to do this. So I think we could end up with future generations, public sector they've got pensions as we already know them. Private sector will be saving up for lump sums at retirement.
It's really difficult to take a long-term view on what these changes actually mean because we don't know what the next set of changes are going to be. And the one thing that would be so nice, I'm sure there are reasons why it can't always be possible, but it would be so much better if there was more dialogue and debate and discussion before far-reaching changes are actually introduced. That way we can avoid the planning blight that sometimes impacts pensions, where people are reluctant to make long-term decisions because they don't have confidence that the landscape that they're making those decisions in won't be radically changed.